Greetings, dear friends. Here we are, reaching the pages of the online store. In this section, we will work with single and archive. Let's start, of course, with the single page. Let's probably start by going to our editor and creating a new branch. I remind you that in the previous lessons we finished the new section, we worked in a separate branch, and I merged it with the main. I am currently on the main branch, creating a new branch. I will name it Pages. I will have one branch for all pages related to the online store. But let's not call it Pages, but Pages. This way, we create a separate branch, and in this branch we will continue to work. We return to the window with Figma and look at the design. We see that we have a completely custom page, meaning what we see are various meta boxes. These are various taxonomies. This is some kind of slider, and for all of this, we need to create personal solutions, because by default, in commerce and single pages, it looks completely different. Moreover, this page consists not only of the product description, but also of some in blocks. You see, that is, additional blocks are present on this page. In the admin panel, if we go to the product section, open a product, we will immediately see that we cannot insert blocks, because by default for products, Commerce loads the classic editor into this classic editor. We can simply write some text. Yes, we can enhance and add meta fields, no problem. We did this, but as such, we still have no functionality for adding blocks. There isn't. Let's save this page and open it to see. And everything I set here, either in the meta field or in promotions or in the description, WooCommerce displays on the page as a template. That is, it has its own little template where it pulls in this data. If you have created classic themes and classic online stores, you know that WooCommerce has its own templates that we as authors can rewrite. They are stored in the directory of the template itself, or rather the plugin. Let's go into it, take a look, and refresh our memory. Let's open up our project, go into it, into the plugin directory, and I'm interested in the WooCommerce directory. So, in the root of the WooCommerce plugin, there is a templates directory. When developers of classic themes want to customize pages to have a different layout, for example, they simply copied this directory into the root of the theme and renamed it from templates to eWooCommerce. And the WooCommerce plugin, when loading the single page for a product, for example, would check if there is a replica inside the theme, and if so, it would use that file. If it wasn't there, it would use its own file located in this directory. You see, here are the PHP files. Therefore, if we were working with a classic theme, we would follow this approach. But we are working with a block theme. And specifically this page, even though it looks exactly like a decade-old template, of an online store's single pages in WooCommerce, which is set in PHP, yes, it essentially looks the same. But it is made using blocks. And we can also find these blocks in this directory as a new folder called templates has appeared. If we open it, here we have PHP, HTML files. So in order to rewrite a certain style for a specific page, you need to take a file from here, for example, single product, and duplicate it in your theme directory, that is in the game store theme in the templates directory. Essentially, what we did in previous lessons with archive news, we will do the same for WooCommerce. This concerns global pages. And regarding blocks, for example, let's consider this section as an example. Yes, this is a single product. There is an image, a title, a price, a description, add to cart. And here, for example, we will pull out this single product. I will pull it out into the editor and see what we see in it, guys. We see the header. We see the body, and in this body we look carefully at the post title, rating, price, except discard. That is to say, everything I have. Here is built in the same way using blocks. And if I want to rewrite this template, I need to recreate it. Here in the template folder, let me recreate it, create it. a new file, naming it single product assembly. Now I have my own template, and if I try to refresh, you already understand, right? It sees an empty template, but it doesn't see the template that you in the plugin. And if I assign it this body, I will update by loading the template directly. All right. This is the first part that we need to implement. We can close the file from the plugin. We don't need it anymore. We will continue working with this file. Single product would be fine, but it turns out that for the title, a separate block is used for the rating. A separate block meaning each section is divided into blocks. And here we have something very complex. It's inconvenient for us to break this entire section into separate small blocks. We would like to do it the way we did with the single page for news. Remember, we created one global block for all this content for the entire window. Moreover, we have different windows here, other blocks. Exactly. Now we will try to implement this in WooCommerce. Let's take a look at the template in the editor. Since we just created the file, it will appear in the editor. If I go into the template, single for the product appears for us. Moreover, all the others appear as well. Templates, but note, yes, the author in WooCommerce, and for this single, the author is Game Store. This is our personal one. While this is still a template from the plugin, we go into this personal template and look at the body, essentially the header footer, a familiar group to us, and within the group, a list of various blocks. Blocks like store, notice, need to be kept as they are responsible for certain functionalities. For example, you clicked Add to Cart, and if there is no automatic redirection to the cart, and you need to show a message on the same page, then this message will be displayed in such a box. So be careful, do not delete it. All of this is from the current page. Next, in the columns, we already have this list of small blocks that we just talked about. Here we have an image, and essentially you can, again, just like with other blocks, play around and assemble it from pieces. And somehow in the style attach it, but we won't do that. We will create a separate new block. The second point regarding these blocks. On one hand, we already have Gutenberg here. We have this page, and we can continue here after this group. That is, keep this group for the upper section and then add this block separate for the call to action. This one for the slider. This one with some description, this similar games, and it's both correct and incorrect because similar games can be both kind of global for all products. And just on a specific product, it will load certain games that match the parameters, and we can take this. So it's like a global template. But I can't add a description for the game to this global template because this data will be static. And I, for example, will set these descriptions with this hard code. And if I set them in this Gutenberg, the same description will load for each product. That is the same content, the same thing. And with this slider, here it is implied that the screenshots are unique for each game. Therefore, I can't set them right here because this is a template. This is not post content, but a post template. So keep that in mind. But if I go back, products, any product, let's open the same product. I need to add all this content here, right here, because for this game there will be its own slider or its own call to action or its own description. And in this case, it turns out that all this content will be different on different pages. But to implement this, we need to replace the classic editor with Gutenberg within this post. Let's try. In WordPress and WooCommerce, there are special cookies that we can connect to through a filter. Add such a feature, disable the editor and use Gutenberg. Let's go to the functions file. At the end of this file, we will add these hooks, create a callback function, and name it Gutenberg. Activate on products. So this function takes two parameters, or rather this filter will accept panedit and post type. Next, we need to check if the current post is a product. Then we return true, but auto-completion is not suggested. Wonderful. We fill in everything here exactly as I want to set it. Next, we call the filter. Filter. We need to connect specifically to the just block editor for post type and pass our callback. I am doing perfectly well here too. Next, we need to also enable taxonomies for categories and for products. So we add an additional callback function. So this function will take certain parameters. And the parameter arcs show in rest we need to set to true. And with the help of filters on WooCommerce taxonomy arcs.product cutter, we load this callback. And the same filter for tags, that is for categories and for tags. Let's see what we have at the moment happening. Well, wonderful. And our Gutenberg appears. And another filter. Let's add we hook onto the product description heading. And disable it in this way. Then this block is converted into blocks because it is used as a classic editor. And here we can, for example, call a call to action and fill it in with some data and all the other blocks. We can now set them in the post content, everything except the last one, because this similar games is a global block. It is in the template, meaning it will be added to the template of this page through the editor, and everything above it is local blocks that specifically relate to this post. The next step, which we will implement in the next lesson, is to create fields for all the data we have here. Create a separate block. It will consist of this entire section, the entire upper section, and it will retrieve this data, as well as separate blocks for subsequent screens, which you see now on the screen. This concludes the current lesson. See you in the next lesson.